Everybody. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Tuesday Livecast. Unfortunately, we're going to try to have Sabrina on here today also via Skype, but she was unavailable this morning. She had a doctor's appointment, so too bad you're stuck with me. Today, we're going to cover a couple of questions. They have a little bit to do with last week's due diligence, but they kind of expand the business a little bit. And I wanted to address these topics because a lot of people that are on our livecast are not really involved in the second arena. Some of them may be buying first. Some of them may be taking a toe in the water type attitude toward getting into seconds. And we had a good question from Manny Sanchez, and Manny's question had to do with the value.
You're fine.
Okay. Manny's question had to do with the valuation of a second after it's performing, or what can you expect to get for a second after that second has been performing. And one of the important things for everybody to understand is that this business is a business that you learn by doing. Unfortunately, I've compared it to golf before. You just can't read a book and expect to go out and play golf well. You need to play the game and you need to practice. The same thing, and by the way, wasn't that a Super Masters tournament this weekend? Unbelievable. Anyway, back to the seconds. The only way that you're going to feel comfortable and really learn this business is by doing it. And the sale of a performing second note, you will learn based upon the people that you have as your buyers. And that's something that you will have to develop as you go along as a buyer's list, or you're going to have to use some of the like MLS loan services, sale services that are out there on the internet to market your notes. You're going to learn what the industry will pay, and you're going to find out what the industry is going to pay on your particular notes and how well you've worked them out and so on. But I do want to answer Manny's question as thoroughly as I possibly can, because it is an important question, and it kind of runs into the same topic of why do we get into seconds in the first place as opposed to first. And I think it'd be very evident to you what the possibilities are with a second versus a first as we go through this. So I think what we want to do first is I want to make up a scenario of the just come up with a scenario of a note that we're going to purchase. All right, this would be somewhat of a typical purchase for us. The original note was for $82,500 at 7.5% for 300 months or 25 years. If you do an amortization, and I think that's something that we should probably do because you want to check everything that you purchase. So this one here is for 300 months. That goes under the end column. We said it's a 7.5% interest rate. We said that the present value of that note, that when it was written, was for $82,500. And it's a fully amortizing note, means that at the end of 25 years or at the end of 300 months, the loan is going to be paid fully. So there is no future value. The payment then would be $609.67. And that's what we have here. The original payment is $609.67. We're also going to assume that this note was paid for 48 months. And we want to determine what is the unpaid principal balance if it were paid for 48 months. So we're going to simply add 48 into our note category. The original sum was 82.5. What's the future value after 48 months? $77,259.69. All right. So now here's something that you're going to be confronted with. On your HP calculator, you could get two different totals when you do it two different times, or you and somebody else could be using two different calculators and do this do this problem right here, and you're going to end up with a little bit different pricing. And that is just calculator error, and it's not uncommon. So we're buying a note that has an unpaid principal balance of $77,254.56. And this is kind of a typical note for us. Our average notes are approximately $70,000. So this would be a kind of a typical purchase. And let's say also that we pay $11,588 for this note, which has an unpaid principal balance of $77,000 plus. Let's also assume that the note that the homeowner has not paid in 34 months. So arrears is simply taking the 34 months that they have not paid and taking it times the payment of 609, comes up to $20,728.78. Now, granted, there's going to be some penalties and interest on this, probably $25 a month late payments or so on, that you could calculate into this also, but we're just going to say the arrears are $20,728. So you go to work on this note, or a workout specialist goes on to work on this note, and the homeowner wants to stay in the home and agrees to pay $4,000 of that $20,728 in arrears. So the workout specialist puts the following workout schedule together. Mr. Homeowner, if you'll pay us $4,000 of the $20,000 arrears and pay $425 a month as your new payment, we'll reduce your interest rate to 4%. And if you pay this on time for 2 years, we will reduce the arrearages and eliminate the $16,000 additional that you haven't paid. So we're just going to wipe those out, and we're going to reduce your interest rate almost 50% down to 4%. So the first thing then that we have to do is we have to determine, now remember, what we're trying to do is determine how much do we think we can make on this when we sell it. So now we have a workout. What we need to know now is how long will it take at a new payment of $425. This should be $425 instead of $609. Sorry about that. Made a mistake there. I didn't put the new payment in. Payment should be $425 at 4% interest, and we want to pay off this note of $77,000. So we have $77,000. We have a $77,254 as the unpaid principal balance. Our payment is going to be $425, and that is a negative. And our interest rate is going to be reduced to 4%. And we're going to solve, oh wait, future value is 0 because this is full. We're going to fully amortize this out. So how long will it take to pay off $77,254 at $425 a month, 4% interest? So we're going to solve for N. 279 payments. All right. So if we take monthly payments for 286 months, and let's say we season this note for only 1 month. Now, we have investors who will pay to buy a second that is performing after the first payment, provided that there has been some kind of a payment made on the arrears. So in this case, the homeowner now has $4,000 into the game, and they've made one payment of $425. The investor, to take the risk of this note, will pay 20%, will pay an amount that will get him a yield of 20%. So if we have 6 payments he wants 20%, he's going to get $425 a month. What would he pay in order to get that 20% yield? He would pay $25,274. How likely is that to happen? It depends upon your buyer's list. It would be somewhat likely for us to be able to sell that note at a 20% yield to the investor. Whether you have that list of buyers or not, I can't tell you. On the next one, however, I'm fairly confident that anybody could find a buyer for this. So let's take a look at this one. We have a note that is seasoned for 6 months. So they've made 6 monthly payments, and now we're going to sell this. And we are going to offer our investor who's buying this note an 18% yield. So how much would we sell it for the investor to get an 18% yield? Well, let's do it. All right. So we have 286. Well, actually on this one here, now we're down to 280 months because there was 6 months of payments made. So if we started out at 286, 6 have been paid, we go down to 280. Our interest rate is going to be 18%. That's what our investor wants to purchase this note. The payment remains at $425. So what would an investor pay to receive an 18% yield on $425 for 280 months? It's going to pay $27,895. All right. Again, we have just a little bit of an error here, and that's commonplace. It's nothing to worry about. It's calculator error. So in this case, we've kept the note paying for 6 months. The investor feels more comfortable about it than he did on the one than they did on the one that had only seasoned 1 month. So therefore, their yield expectations are a little bit lower, and we get more money for it. So now let's take a look at one that is seasoned for 12 months. And this one here, very easy to sell. Very easy to sell. So in this case, again, we've paid for another 6 months. So now there's only 274 months left. The yield to the investor would be, we're going to offer 15%. The payment remains at $425. What would that investor pay for a 15% return on a $425 for 274 months? Well, let's do that again. So we have a 15% return. We have 274 months. $425 still is our payment. What would the investor pay, or what's the present value of that? $32,869. $32,869. So the investor would pay $32,869 for that note. Now, you as the purchaser of the defaulted note needs to make some decisions. Do you want to try to sell this note with a 20% yield and 1 month of seasoning? Do you want to try to sell it at 6 months of seasoning and yield and collect $32,869, which is approximately $6,500 more than you would have gotten if you would have waited? Well, in order to make an informed decision, it's probably best if you were to do an annualized return on investment on this property or on this note. So if we do case one, which is we collect one payment and then sell it, and let's make another assumption. Let's say it takes us 9 months from the time that we buy this note to get that one payment behind us and sell the note. So it's going to take us 9 months from the time we $425 worth of income, which is the result of a $4,000 arrears payment plus $425 in 1 month's payment. And we saw from our calculation that we were going to sell this note for $25,274 to return the 20% yield to our investor. So the total that we collect on this note is $29,699. The amount we sell it for plus the amount of income that we've generated during the time that we owned it. We paid $11,588 for it, so we have a profit of $18,111 in approximately 10 months. 9 months to work it out, 1 month of collecting income. So we got 10 months. So we get an annualized return of investment of 187%. Case two, we've received $2,550 in payments. $425 for 6 months, $2,550 plus our $4,000 in arrears gives us a total income of $6,550. From our calculations, to return to our investor 18%, we're going to sell it for $27,274, or a total of $33,824 income during this period of time that we held the note. The period of time that we hold the note in this one is 6 months longer than we held it before. So now we're at 15 or 16 months of holding this note before we sell it. We still paid $11,588. Our profit is $22,236, or an annualized return of 158%. So you got to weigh the difference between 158 and 187. And as soon as we look at scenario number 3, I can give you a little more insight into what our decision might be. So the income in case number 3, the homeowner pays us for 12 months and then we sell it. So they are paying us total payments of $5,100 plus their $4,000 in arrears, which gives us a total income from the period of time that we own the note of $9,100. We sell the note for $27,935 for a total of $32,869 worth of income off of this note. Again, we paid $11,588 for it, which gives us a profit of $21,281 over the period of time that we've owned it, which annualizes down to 158% return on our investment. So now we have 187, 158, 158. And again, it's going to be determined by how long are you comfortable holding the note to sell it to an investor that you have found. And what we're likely to do is keep it for we're likely to keep it. I'm trying to get back here. We're likely to keep that note for 6 or 9 or 12 months because we would warranty that note to the investor. So we want to be sure that we have a note that is going to continue to perform. And usually our history has been that if a note performs for 6 months or 12 months, but usually just 6 months, if it performs for 6 months, the likelihood of it going to default again is very, very slim. So if we're going to warranty it and we don't want the hassle of taking a note back or working it out again, then we definitely want to keep it for 6 months. Now, we will sell notes that have 1 month seasoning on them to investors that are comfortable buying those kinds of notes. So it becomes a decision that you make with experience, and you need to decide at that point just what you're looking for from your investment. If you don't have a large staff that can do workouts and you get a note back and it puts you into a jam of working notes out, that can be a problem. So you might want to wait and collect the funds. In addition to that, you may be a cash flow investor where you want to keep that cash flow. If you're collecting $425 a month, let's just do that real quick. If you're collecting, let's clear these out. If you're collecting $425 a month times 12 is $5,100 per month that you're collecting. You paid $11,588. You are collecting you are collecting $4,000 in arrears. You only have $7,588 in this note, and you're collecting $5,100. So if you divide 5,100 from 70, whoops. %67 annualized return, and that goes on for 280 months. You might want to be a cash flow buyer. And but if you're not, if you do want to sell them, then you have that opportunity. And I think that, about the lowest that you would go with a performer after 1 year is 15% yield. So I hope that answers your question, Manny. there is a very significant market for performing seconds. I'm not sure where else you can get a 15% yield that's secured by real estate that has what's very, very commonplace in the market today is emotional equity, where the homeowner wants to stay in the home, and in this case has $4,000 worth of skin in the game and made 12 payments or 6 payments or whatever they have. Every time they write that check, they're telling you, I want to stay in the house. So that is Manny's question. Manny, I appreciate you asking it. I think it was a very good question, and I hope we provided some insight there. The second question had to do with IRS tax liens. And when you are doing your due diligence on a note, it would be prudent to find out if there is a tax lien from the IRS, not from it causing a problem with the note, but more importantly, that you may end up with a less than desirous homeowner, and you may want to reflect that in your due diligence. You may want to reflect their lack of paying their taxes. It might influence your decision on what you're going to pay for the note. Typically, the IRS lien, and I'm not an accountant or an attorney, but I'm going to just talk to you from experience. If you should get some insight from your own professionals, but an IRS lien is not that difficult to remove from the property. So what happens when somebody doesn't pay their taxes is that the IRS will attach a lien to their property, which means that if they sell their property, then that lien has to be paid off to the IRS in the priority of the lien. Now, most often, the IRS will remove the lien from the property, but the debt still remains with the homeowner. But if you buy a note that the home has a lien, typically a lien from the IRS, then through negotiations with the IRS, you can usually get that lien removed. That will not happen with property tax, however, and it may not happen if you have a tax situation where it's state income tax or something like that. But with the IRS, it's usually fairly easy to remove that lien from the property. You may want to reflect that lien in your offer price, because you're going to have to work harder. You got to now negotiate with the IRS. It's going to take you longer to get a workout. So keep that in mind, but I think you're usually pretty safe by getting it negotiated. So again, I want to thank you guys for participating. Thanks for the questions. Please send them in. That's why we're here. Let me just mention one more time that we are having a boot camp in Orlando, Florida on May 15th through 17th. And the amount that you invest to come to this boot camp can be used to buy a note from us. So the boot camp can be free. It is intensive. We're going to cover everything from soup to nuts. I think if you went to boot camps that offer just a slice of what we do, you'll be paying somewhere in the $5,000 range for each of those boot camps. So please go to notemogul.com, notemogul.com, and we'll be able to get signed up for the boot camp. We look forward to seeing you there, and please send in whatever questions you may have. And thank you again. See you next week.